Welcome back to the Brujeria channel. Today we are blessed by the presence of that yawn. Oh my god, baby! You're so freaking cute! Stormy! ¿Qué estás haciendo? Oh. So in this video today, we're going to talk about the Spanish or Catholic influence in Latin American brujeria. Okay, bye. As a disclaimer, I am not here to dictate whether the morality or character of a historic figure is up to anyone's standards. So I'm simply giving information and discussing how Spain and the Spanish Empire has influenced Latin America, and specifically for the purposes of this video discussing how Catholic and Spanish influence is still seen today within Latin American brujeria and witchcraft. I do need a little bit of help from someone else. My husband, who's an actual historian, he went to college for history and social studies. He's a teacher. Right now he's teaching students online and tutoring, and he recommended to me many books such as Natives and Newcomers, A Concise History of Spain, and Bárbaros. And as always, I have all of my sources down below in the description if you require some further reading, if you're interested, if you want to acquire some more knowledge. As a short disclaimer, I'm going to be talking about the Spanish point of view in this video, and in future videos I will be discussing the Indigenous and African points of view. History is complicated. It should also be noted that this is not a general history of Latin America, so I will not be discussing topics such as genocide in various details. This is a discussion about brujeria, witchcraft, spirituality in Latin America and its origins, so I will not be discussing history that is not related to that. Our story begins circa 1450 under the rule of Isabel la Católica, Queen of Castile. During this period, Spain was an empire, so you can check out this little map here. It's important to remember that the Kingdom of Castile and the Empire of Spain were impoverished at the time. They were in an economic downward spiral. The position of Queen Isabella was not only that of a conquering hero for the Spanish Empire, but also as the Holy Monarch. And so since she wanted to unify all of Spain, she had the backing of the Catholic Church, which had much influence. So it's important to note that the Empire of Spain was fighting on several different fronts all at the same time. Not only were they in a war of conquest, so it was against France and England for positions of power over different lands, they were also fighting in a religious war. So since Spain was trying to unite under Catholicism, they were fighting up against Protestantism, Judaism, and Islam. So it's important to note that the conquest of Spain into the New World was economically driven and religiously driven. History is complicated. There's of course the rumor of gold in the New World, so they wanted to bring back that gold, many riches back to Spain since it was in a critical state economically. Queen Isabella was known first and foremost as a queen of justice. She was a conquering queen as well. And in one of her testimonials, she did give a reference to the indigenous people of the New World, which I will quote: "Do not give rise to or allow the Indians, indigenous Americans, to receive any wrong in their persons and property, but rather that they be treated well and fairly, and if they have received any wrong, remedy it." Queen Isabella was not in favor of any enslavement of the indigenous people, and actually had royal decrees to put forth policies that would mirror those that she used in the Canaries for the native people of those islands. And in fact, that if there were any indigenous people there in the New World, that they would become subjects of the Castilian crown in the Spanish Empire. And so the way that my husband explained it, from a tactician's viewpoint, from a historian's viewpoint, it's very Game of Thronesy, as he put it. So there were many treaties being made with the indigenous people. At the time, the Mayan and the Aztec Empire were in their golden age as well. So you have a fleet of ships of perhaps 10,000 Spaniards versus an entire continent. And so in order to expand the Spanish Empire to further their conquest in the New World, they had to think like a tactician. And so there is a certain genius about this without diminishing, without downplaying any of the mass genocide, it was warfare. And there are casualties in warfare, unfortunately. So from a tactician's point of view, there were many strategies that were being made. They had treaties with indigenous people, and so they would go to war with them, alongside them, and then afterwards they would double cross them. They would backstab them, and they would further their conquest into the New World. So during this period of American history, the Americas were divided up into different indigenous sovereign nations who would go to war against enemy tribes for territory. And so it was not uncommon for indigenous tribes to create treaties with these newcomers from Europe in order to use their advancement in technologies in order to conquer their enemy tribes for territory. However, what they did not expect was for these Europeans to double-cross them. And since the primary goal of these Europeans was territorial conquest, it was actually much more beneficial for them to allow the indigenous people to maintain their cultural heritage and religious heritage. This is why a lot of indigenous people were pushed onto reservations where they could continue their traditions in their small communities. So while these Catholic colonizers did have the prospect of religious conversion, their main objective, however, was the expansion of the Spanish Empire through territorial conquest. It's because of this particular history that allowed the integration of Catholicism with indigenous practices and allowed for the preservation of indigenous practices in our modern day, which I will discuss in another video. History is complicated, and so it's very Game of Thronesy, and alongside all of this, the Spanish are also in a race to conquer the New World with the French and the English at the time. Actually, I can't not mention Portugal, which was like Spain's biggest rival at the time, and which is why the Portuguese had control over Brazil when they divided up South America, but I'm getting off track. History is complicated. So we can still see the Spanish influence in our world today, especially in the world of brujeria, witchcraft, and spiritual practices in Latin America. Many practitioners do identify as Catholic, or at least some form of Christianity. Whether it's recognized by a church or organization depends on the individual and depends on their own practice. Different practices of brujeria, or different spiritual practices within Latin America, still use different Catholic iconography in their altars and in their practices. It may not be altars at all, in fact, with many different practices calling them mesas or ofrendas. We can see the Catholic influence, however, in the different iconography, such as statues of the cross, decorations with sculptures of Jesus, of the Virgin Mary, and different saints. We can see it in the use of candles, of vigils, rosaries, the sign of the cross, the reading of psalms, oracionistas, or practitioners that use the power of prayer in order to heal. The use of blood over doors, sanctification, confession, cleansing rituals, holy water, anointing oil, blessed water, sacred water. There are many rituals within Espiritismo that use water. They can also use blessed water by a priest specifically, so these are different sects that do still revere Catholicism or identify under the large umbrella of Catholicism. There's also the darker side of Catholicism with demon possession, exorcisms, and things of that nature. Furthermore, in Latin America, there's also a huge list, and I truly mean really long, huge list of regional saints. These are saints that people still revere, they still give ofrendas and pray to. It's perhaps because of this Catholic influence that many people in Latin America are superstitious and see witchcraft or brujeria as works of the devil. Which brings me to my next note, which is the community of satanic witches within Latin America. There's actually a large community of that as well. And so it should be noted that not all brujas, not all witches, or Latin American practitioners are Christian, Catholic, satanic, or even deist at all. It all depends on the practitioner, it all depends on the individual and whatever kind of path or witchcraft that they practice. However, there are also different denominations of Christianity. There are Jewish witches as well, I must note. There are witches that are indigenous, and so these practitioners will use deities, spirit guides, or other sort of entities in their practice. There are different practitioners that still identify or revere indigenous deities or spirits which have been sanctified into Catholicism. Although not officially, there are different sects or cults that do identify them as saints. So if you are from Latin America like me, what are some practices that you think are influenced by Catholicism in your witchcraft, in your brujeria? What are some things that you've seen? What are perhaps some superstitions that you think are influenced by Catholicism in Latin America? Let me know in the comments. As always, I have my link tree in the description, and especially in this video today, I'm going to have a plethora of resources, a plethora of sources down below in the description as well. If you have any questions, let me know. I will try my best to get back to you. Please subscribe to my channel if these sort of videos are interesting to you. I will continue on in this mini-series talking about the indigenous community and also the African or Afro-Latinx community as well. Thanks for watching. Bye!